It's called the what's next. If you don't have a what, if you and I, if we know we're never going to talk to each other again, how will we treat each other?
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Remington Ramsey, and today our guest is none other than Michael J. Maher. Michael, the reason why I am Remington T. Ramsey on Facebook is because I learned from you, Michael J. Maher. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Remington T. Ramsey.
That's right.
Your name just has like a man of mystery, James Bond feel to it, right? Remington T. Ramsey.
Yeah, definitely.
Michael J. Maher's a little softer.
I make everyone book with Moneypenny before they get to me.
I like it.
Well, Mike and I have been friends for years. In fact, he was instrumental in helping me launch Masterclass Indie. At the time, was Mastermind Indie. It launched around the same month, actually, that we launched the first ever Real Producers magazine, June of 2015. And back up before that, I had brought Michael in a couple times to speak. He rose to the ranks of top realtor in the country, and then life happened and a little bit of drama happened, and I'll have you share about that, but has spent the last 10, 15 years as a accomplished author and speaker. I give out your book all the time, Michael. I just gave it out again the other day. I sign it. It's not as valuable as if you sign it, but I sign them when I give them out. 7 Levels of Communication. And most recently has launched and topped the charts in referrals referralspodcast.com, as you see in his background. So just constantly the leader in all things real estate as it pertains to anything that you can get your hands on content wise. So very happy to have you. I do want you to briefly share your story of how you got into this role, and then we'll jump into referral mastery.
Yeah. So, the long story short of it is that I was just doing real estate like you do real estate. I didn't know I was doing anything special. I was just doing what I was, what the plan and what my brain was taking me towards, and my heart, honestly. And I got interviewed by a guy named Howard Brenton, and he had a list of 100,000 people. And that blew up my emails, blew up my phone. Everybody wanted to know what we were doing. I'd send them a system, or I'd send them a checklist. I'd send them the housewarming party system. Send them the Certified Wise Home program. But I felt like I was giving them an answer rather than the answer of how to get 500 referrals a year.
Yeah.
And I knew I needed to, so it kind of made me like, I need to write a book on like the answer instead of just an answer. And like a lot of people need to write a book. I didn't write a book for several years.
Yeah, I'm currently sitting there.
Yeah. And so am I, honestly. So, then I got a wake up call. I had surgery. I had knee surgery. It was supposed to be routine, clean up cartilage, all good. And then 5 days later, I had complications from that. I had to go to the ER. And then the morning of December 18th, 2007, I flatlined for 37 seconds from an episode with blood clots. I had 7 blood clots, 3 in each lung. 1 went through my heart, killed me for 37 seconds. Luckily, I was in the hospital. The head nurse resuscitated me. When I came to, very emotional moment, very weird moment. They were wheeling me down to the surgery room to put in a pacemaker. And I just thought I didn't have a kid at the time. I wanted a kid. I also thought I have this system that is based on love, generosity, and appreciation that is getting lots of sales. And there's nothing like it in the world. And it almost just died with me. And that night in intensive care in Olathe Medical Center, of all places, I outlined what became, the 7 levels of communication. I did not know that. Drew this pyramid, and then from there, spent 18 months to 2 years to write it. And we are coming up on the 10-year anniversary of the published date of 7L. 10 years.
That's crazy.
10-year birthday coming up on it. So
I think I'm half your sold copies.
Yeah, you are responsible for about 20,000 of the 500,000 copies. So I think, and by the way, that's a significant number.
Yeah, I love it.
You made me a bestseller all by yourself.
Nice. Well, I expect you to return the favor when I write that first book. I mean,
Let's go.
you're joking. I mean, you're half joking, but like I wonder how many people are sitting on a book right now, a book idea, a memoirs, and
I think everybody
what
should
keeps
write
us
one.
from writing it?
Yeah, I think anybody that has a kid should write one. Write one for your kid. Write what would you want to say to them if you died tomorrow? Right. And just write it, and write it chapter by chapter, and don't make it great. Just make it you. And one of the best ways you could do it, this isn't even part of this content today, but is just like have 10 questions you want somebody to ask you, and then have a stranger that you don't know ask you these questions and then answer them on Zoom, and then have the Zoom transcribed, and you now have your book.
Hold on. So walk me through. This is good stuff. So write a book. The way to start a book is you write down 10 questions you want a stranger to ask you. What's the purpose of the stranger asking you? Because they don't know the answers?
They don't know the answers. You're going to explain it in more detail if it's a stranger. And I don't mean stranger. Like I mean like someone who I did it with some agents around the country.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I did. And then we did it by voicemail. We did it through a phone call, and we recorded the phone call. It was before Zoom, of course. And now you can do it with Zoom, and then AI can actually transcribe it in about 5 seconds.
How do you determine what the 10 questions are?
What are the 10 questions what are the 10 questions you most likely get? What are the 10 questions you get the most often? Right. Mm-hmm. Or for a kid, it's like, what are the 10 questions that, what do you want to answer for them? Like, what's the secret to success?
Yeah.
Right. What should you do in the morning? Like, how do you treat a girl? These are all for my 14-year-old son. These are questions I would love to, record.
What do you want to be remembered for?
Yeah, there you go. What do you want to be remembered for? What's what's your legacy? What are your values? What's fun for you? How'd you meet your mother? I think, like, I'm not even sure if Max knows that story. I'm not sure if I want him to know that story, but
certain things you'll leave out. There'll be a PG-13 version of the book.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is good, man. So 10 questions. I'm going to do this because I sometimes, as a writer, like the only writing I've been doing and I've really enjoyed it is for my own personal magazine here in Indianapolis. I write a publisher's note, and I use that little snippet, which is anywhere between 300 and 700 words usually, on just life lessons that I've learned from personal experience, and then applying that in short to the business. And I've had so much fun doing that I realized that, after 100 issues, I have a book. I just got to expand on those things. So
yeah, you got 70,000 words there. You've got 2 books.
Yeah,
you really do. Yeah, love it.
Well, you are the referral master, Michael. You've filled stadiums of people with this content, and what I love about reading the book and going through the seminars myself is how easy it is to take that first step. Like sometimes you hear these coaches and you hear these ideas and you're like, okay, I'm going to pay all this money. And then you just hope that by paying the money, it'll just happen for you, but you actually make it applicable. So talk to me about, first and foremost, the thing that you're into right now, which is your referrals podcast. What's that all about?
Well, the referrals podcast I love because we interview the subtitle is Real People, Real Stories, Real Referrals. So we have people that are inside of our community, Gen, and outside of our community. We don't limit it to that. Who tell us about referrals they get and how they got them. And then what we do, and I've always been a researcher by nature and very curious about what is the trigger for a referral, because a referral is a big, big deal. It's bigger than, I ask people all the time, which would you rather be? Would you rather be liked? Would you rather be respected? Would you rather be trusted? Or would you rather be referred? And you can only pick one. Which one would you rather be?
You asking me?
Yeah.
Well, I think referred encompasses all those others.
Hopefully it does, right? And by the way, I do this in audiences. We have people that raise their hand. I'd rather be liked. And I'm going, that is a recipe for disaster in this business. If There's a lot of different comments on, I think the whole thing is trying to be liked is the number one, root of failure. And then, respect it. It's like, okay, so you want to do your job really well. I get it. And that's good. And then it's trusted, and like people raise their hand. I'd rather be trusted than any of the other four. And it's like, okay, well, maybe, right? But here's the next question I have is, out of the four, which pays the best? Referrals, right? You trust your mom, but you don't refer to her, maybe, right? I mean, it's like, you trust your sister, there's people you trust.
I don't trust my sister. You don't know what she did to me.
Exactly. I mean, it was a long time ago. Get over it, dude. But it is one of those where, asking that question is kind of opened some people's eyes that there's a leap, and we've got to get to that leap. And, I have this relationship scale that's 0 to 10, and 0 is a stranger. You don't know each other. And then there's 1 to 3 on the scale is no chemistry. Like there's just nothing jiving. There's, for some reason, biases or just sure, they're not interested in things you're interested in. There's no chemistry. You've met people like that, right? It's just, this is weird. They're weird. I'm weird. And then a 4 is somebody you can spend, like 3 minutes with, like it's good. And then a 5 is somebody you can spend like 3 hours with, it's like, oh, this is awesome. Big jump from 4 to 5. 5 is, right, and then 6 is somebody you can spend 3 days with. Weekend, you hang out, it's awesome. And then you're ready to bolt, you're done. 3 days is good. Yeah. And then a 7 is special, right? A 7 is like a best friend for life. This is somebody that you can spend 3 weeks with. You could go to Italy, you could go to Greece, you could go to, you could go on vacation together, spend 3 weeks, you'd still love each other and it'd be awesome. And then you need to go home, right? It's time to break up the party.
Let me ask you something. Can I pause you for a second?
Yeah.
How many in different circles, depending on your religion or your community, this answer might be different, but what do you believe the amount of 7s you can have in your life, like an actual 7? Now, how many of those you have? 5? I
think it's 5 or less, right? The vital few. And Dunbar actually did research on this. Professor Robin K. Dunbar, he added the K because he knew me. Right. Just kidding. But Dunbar's number is 150. And that's like, how many can you have in a community and have relationships with 150, right? That's why we do a lot of, break your database down to 150. But he actually tallied it back to, tribe and kin and family. And he took it back, and it's like 5 to 7 is really the max number of people. And honestly, I feel in today's world that if you have one of those, you're really lucky.
Yeah.
Right. No doubt. I really do. And as I get older, there's fewer of them. And they're even more special. It's that's a great question.
I'll tell you, kind of in my own personal life, I have a fantasy football league of 12 guys, right? Yeah. And we've been together for, 15 years. But even within that league, there's levels of how close certain guys are to each other. I mean, we would go into war together, all 12 of us, but there's certain groupings of men that you just trust and want to do life with more. And I think some people, you talk about that realtor who raised their hand and said, I want to be likable. I wonder if they really struggle with deep relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm necessarily an expert on like people's historical psychology, right?
Oh, that's why we had you on. This is the wrong podcast.
Yeah. But it's I don't study the ones who want to be likable. I don't study the ones that want to be respected. I don't study the ones that want to be trusted. I study the ones that want to be referred. You know what I mean? So I really lack any depth whatsoever into, exploring those three. Cause it's like, for me, my life has been about the jump of going from relationship to referral. And that's the subtitle of 7L. And that's what it's all about, is how do you go from having relationships to getting referrals? And that's kind of that relationship scale is, we're only up to 7. What about the 8, 9, and 10? Well, an 8 is a client, and then the 9 is a champion, and a champion is somebody who speaks highly of you, right? They champion you. They support you. And then a 10 is an ambassador. And an ambassador is somebody that not only speaks highly of you, but they also refer you willingly. And it's one of those where, like, sometimes sevens aren't tens. They're sevens. That you don't want to talk business around them. You just want to relax and let your hair down.
Sure.
If you talk business, it might be a little weird. But where the referrals occur are the 8, 9, and 10 level. Well, that's the thing, though, is how do we take the 0, the 7 into the 8, 9, and 10? That's one question. And then the other one is, but that's not how we build relationships, Remington. We build relationships only to a certain point. We build relationships in a way that is like it's ingrained in us that in the 10,000 BC, if we saw a shadowy figure come up over the horizon, we had two thoughts in our head. They were either what or what?
Blanking.
Yeah. So they were either friend or foe.
Oh,
right.
Gotcha.
So it's friend or foe. If it's part of the tribe, we've got to go out and help them. If it's a foe, then we need to sound the alarm and we need to arm our warriors against it. Right.
Right.
And the thing, and it's inherent. Like we do that all the time. We are literally trying to make it as easy as possible for us to determine friend or foe. Right. But the thing is referrals don't happen in the friend or foe zone. Right. They happen in the referral zone. And the referral zone is that 8, 9, and 10. So one way that you can make a friend into a referral is to make them a client, right? They become a client of yours. The other way is to have certain strategies to skip the client part and get them to where they are a champion and they are an ambassador. And we need talkabouts. We need things for them to talk about, right? And like your magazine is something people talk about for you. But even maybe as important or more important is your events, right? The events are talkabouts. You and Aaron and your events are as big a part of your magazine. It's one and the same. And that's the power of like the referral mastery system is, we've got all three aspects. We've got self-mastery, which is, 1 to none. Self-mastery, first love yourself, because it's really hard to love others and love on others if we don't love ourselves. And then relationship mastery, which is the 1-to-1 aspect, like this, this is a 1-to-1. And then we have event mastery, which is 1 to many. It's leverageable, scalable, and it's about having events and that is a great way to get a 6 to a 10 is one event.
Well, you know what I love about your content? I've said this before, and I don't want to give away trade secrets because you're not a realtor anymore. You're a real estate coach. You're a real estate speaker. But I do think that trainer, I think one thing that I learned from you as someone on the outside as a vendor is you're always looking to drive attendance to that next thing. I've told you that before. If you go to the seminar, you sit through the seminar and you like it, and you always drive attendance to your coaching. And when you get on your coaching, after a coaching call, you're like, hey, you can find this on the social group or the next seminar we're doing. And every time you leave someone, you're leaving them with the next time they're going to see you. And I think even if I'm a realtor listening to that, I think that should be a part of your plan. You can learn from someone as they're doing it to you. You can do that to your sphere. If you're talking about your top 150 or your 8, 9, and 10s, like they should be doing that.
You said trade secrets. It like really is. I mean, it's really not. Let's talk about it. But it's like, it's called the what's next, right? If you don't have if you and I, if we know we're never going to talk to each other again, how will we treat each other? But if we have a what's next, if you and I know that I'm going to be in Indy together, right, in a few weeks, then how is our relationship? Right now we have reason to communicate between that now and the time we're going to get together. And I learned it through in real estate. That's where I learned it is when I had an event, I learned that I needed to have another event already ready, because at the first event, I could invite them to the next event. Well, what does that do for our relationship between the two? It gives us a reason to talk. It gives us accountability to the relationship because we know we're going to see each other again. And with that accountability comes referrals, quite honestly, is because over time, they know the best way to give value to me is through referral. Like, don't invite me to dinner, don't invite me to lunch, don't, the number one way to if you feel like I've given you value, the number one way to give value back is referrals.
Yeah.
And so, the other thing too is so many people think transactional, client to, contract to close. And we need to quit thinking that way. And people are like, well, you got to go from transactional to relational. Well, I think we're stopping too short with relational. We need to go from transactional through relational to transformational. And transformational means we transform them from just a client to a stark, crazy, raving fan, an ambassador for us and our business. They become a brand ambassador by the time that we are done with the closing. And we don't call closing because closing has a connotation of closing a relationship. We call it a celebration, and it's going to be a celebration. And then we have the housewarming party. So we throw housewarming parties for all of our clients, and it's 45 to 60 days out. What does that do? It keeps me having a reason to communicate. Wow. And then we have the wealth building committee, which is 45 to 90 days after the housewarming party. And the wealth building committee is a financial planner, insurance agent, attorney, CPA, different people. And for every client I had, we had the WBC, the wealth building committee, and all of the people at that table had to bring them one tip for that couple or for that person who bought the house, right?
Yeah.
They could ask any question they want, right? And it was all paid for. Like it was free for the client. Well, guess what? A lot of my ambassadors who were insurance agents, attorney, they got a lot of clients from that.
Sure, I bet.
And it kept me in communication. Well, by the time we did the wealth building committee, they were in for all of our other events, sure. Right? They were now in our community.
Because you've already done two for them. You've done a housewarming party, which I'm sure you have like a checklist of what goes on there. Oh, yeah. When you do the wealth building committee, was that with all of your clients in a room or per client? One client at a time?
One client. So it was one client, 8 to 10 professionals, right? And I'd just kind of be like the ringleader. And, I would say, all right, what's your tip? And the thing is, you don't want it to be just, all right, bring your questions, because one, they won't show up. And two, because they don't know what they're getting. There's, and number two is that it's too one-sided, and there's two. But if they know that they're going to get a money saving or money making tip from every single person in the room, they're going to show up for those tips. Well, here's what happens. Those tips lead to questions. And as we know, questions lead to clients. And so we just had a lot of fun with it, but there was always a what's next in the relationship. So I got, and what's funny is people thought contract to close was like contract to the wealth building committee. So I got 120 days.
Yeah. Where
most realtors were getting 20 to 30 days.
Right.
And like I said, by the time we got to the wealth building committee, they were already being invited to our all YAP events, our yearly appreciation events. And they were in, and very, very, very few clients who didn't join our tribe of trust, join our community, my community,
So, but you said they were a raving fan. You have during the close to get them to raving fan status before their open house. So what are some real-time application bits you can give us that for that 30 days while you're closing turns them in from a client to a raving fan?
Yeah. So we need to think transformational, right? So communication every week is number one, right? And then the other thing that we discovered was a very valuable thing was to under promise and over deliver. Right. So in the buyer's consultation, by the way, doing a buyer's consultation, we do a buyer's consultation for every buyer who goes through our services. Everybody thinks they're going to get lucky, right? They're just going to look at 3 houses and buy one. That's not how it works. Set them down, take control of the process, and show them what the process is. That was a referral opportunity. I would walk out of buyer's consultations with 1 or 2 referrals, and I would walk out of the buyer's consultation with 3 or 4 referrals for them.
Yeah.
Right. They needed an insurance agent, or they needed a financial planner, or they needed something, right? Mortgage professional. So already we're starting a referral relationship before they're actually even buying a home. And so the buyer's consultation was big. And in the buyer's consultation, I underpromised everything. I said there's going to be hundreds of things wrong with the home. Only 40 things are wrong with the home. I told them we might not be able to get the seller to do anything. The seller does 2, 3, 6, maybe 12 things. And so under promising and over delivering is the key to the whole sequence. And just, the nice thing about telling them the truth and under promising is that you can wow people just simply by doing your job. And that's, that's what people think, what are you doing? You're buying them gifts, you taking them to dinner, or you spending, and it's like, we didn't spend any money on clients, but until the housewarming party, we didn't. We didn't even buy them a closing gift. Our closing gift, what do you think our closing gift was? It was a housewarming party. And then we give them the closing gift at the housewarming party. And for years we gave Cutco knives.
Hey, there we go. I know a couple of people that worked at Cutco.
There you go.
So I'm amazed by your systems and how well thought it is. I mean, I love that, the what's next program. I'm going to implement that in my business for sure. By the way, I'm looking at your book is just sitting on my desk, and there's a quote by Dave Ramsey. I assume that's my uncle Dave.
Yeah.
Or is that the guru Dave?
That's do you have an uncle Dave Ramsey?
No, but I always tell people he's my uncle.
Well, I hope he's debt free.
Yeah.
So yeah. So yeah, by the way, I interestingly enough, I got his endorsement through implementing the strategies of 7L.
Really?
Yeah. So Dave Ramsey came to a Star Power, or not Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey spoke, but he had a representative who was at the event, and they were starting their endorsed local provider program, which was called the ELP program. And the ELP program was, they would go, consumers from his radio show would go to the site and need a realtor, and then they would refer the realtor in the area. And part of the Ramsey Incorporated was licensed. And so, he has a brokerage. By the way, might be the top brokerage in the United States until EXP was formed. Now it's probably second, but he made a lot of money on these referral fees. Well, they were just setting that up with a guy named Heath, and all these agents were trying to meet Heath and shoving cards in his face. And I stood back and just kind of observed, and I knew Stephanie Evelo, name drop there. Stephanie Evelo, and I knew that she knew Heath. Instead of going direct, I used the triangle of trust straight out of 7L. The triangle of trust is the direct approach, may not, and most times is not the best approach because it's too cold and there's a vested interest, right? And so I went the triangle of trust. Let's establish trust. It's so hard to establish trust with a stranger.
Yeah.
It's very easy to establish trust with someone they trust. Right. So I went to Stephanie. I said, Stephanie, he's super busy now, but would you do me a favor? When things slow down, would you introduce me to Heath? I'd love to talk to him about his program and see how I can help with it. And she's like, OMG. She grabbed me by the arm, and actually pretty hard. I remember she had like mama grip, right? Right. I mean, she had like she had mama grip, and she just grabbed me, and she went behind the table, the booth table that all these agents were here behind, took Heath and spun him and said, this is a guy you got to know. You got to know Michael Maher. I know you got all this stuff going on, but this is the one that you want to talk to. And
that's a good endorsement right there.
Yeah, like, Stephanie, thank you so much. And he's like, well, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm a little busy right now. But let's talk later. And he gave me his card. And it's like, all right. And I go, oh yeah, absolutely. I appreciate everything and would love to talk to you. And then I walked away and I had his card, right? So you give me a card, like I'm going to follow up, right? But what's interesting is like 4 hours later, I got a text and it was Stephanie and said, "Hey, about 8 of us are going to dinner with Heath. Do you want to go?" Right. And guess what? I went to the dinner. I said,
Yeah, you better believe it.
Stephanie, once again, the connector of a lifetime. Like Stephanie's one of those people, right?
Yeah.
And so she sat me right next to Heath on
That's
purpose,
awesome.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm hard of hearing, so that was like doubly good for me. And then we chatted the whole time, and I had some ideas for that ELP program that they implemented that I think really helped it spread very, very quickly and became very popular. And so fast forward, I finished the book.
Yeah.
And triangle of trust, right? Do I send it to put it on Dave's? He doesn't endorse books. He's too busy. So no, I contacted Heath and I go, Heath, I know this is a super long shot, but if I could get one sentence from Dave about the book, I would love it. And he goes, no problem, Michael, I'll put it on his desk and I'll make sure he sees it. And he reads every book he endorses. He's only endorsed 2 books ever. And I was like, okay, that's not freaking happening, and I'm telling you, it was like 7 days later, I got an email from Heath and he goes, you can use any one of these 3.
Wow.
And, one of them was, if you want to win business, this book will help you win. I mean, it was money. So
yeah, that's sweet, man. That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I often wonder about the stories behind some of these endorsements, knowing if this person actually knows you or how you actually get that. That's a great story. I love that story.
I've got a scoop for you. Go look through it and see which endorsements are missing
on this book.
Yeah. Not right now.
Okay.
Maybe later.
I mean, it might take longer. That might be a different podcast.
Yeah. There's stories behind the endorsements you get, but there's also stories behind the endorsements you don't get. And as you can imagine, there were people that I wanted to endorse it that decided not to. So
yeah,
not bitter. It's all good.
Yeah,
it would only help them in the long run. But
I imagine you have some pretty funny stories of speaking. Like when you're on the speaking circuit, you've been on it for 15 years now.
Yeah.
Anything crazy happy while you're on the road?
Oh my God. Are you something crazy happens every time I'm on the road, Remington. I mean, that's what I love about travel. But I mean, I did have one where we were doing a Gen event. Okay. So the first Gen event, we'll just go with that. So I wrote the book and I wrote it in the allegory style, what I call the power parable, right? A story with 100 strategies mixed in. So I can show them instead of just telling them the strategy. It's so much better and so much like more subtle. People read the book 5 times, they get something the 5th time.
It's a good strategy. I think like Robin Sharma was the first one I read that was like that, Leader Without a Title. The guy who wrote The Carpenter, who is that? John
Gordon.
Yeah.
And then you've got Patrick Lencioni and you've got Ken Blanchard and the best of all time, in my opinion, was Og Mandino's The Greatest Salesperson or The Greatest Salesman in the World. Right. That's required reading for everybody. That was the very first self-help book I ever read. I read it. I devoured it. I took notes. I have blue highlighter, yellow highlighter, and purple highlighter.
I always get that one confused with The Alchemist. I don't know why. The Alchemist and Greatest Salesman in the World, for some reason.
Yeah, they're similar in nature, right?
Yeah.
But it's one of those where I remember that I remember where I was standing in the house and the book had come out in October. I got a call in December and a lady called and goes, "When's your next event?" And I'm like,
and you had one yet?
What is she talking about? I looked at Sherry and was like, what is, and I'm going like, your number says 515. Like, that's not a local number. Are you in Kansas City? I mean, we do event, but not in December. And she was like, no, your generosity generation event in the book. When's your next generosity generation event? And I'm like, I'm looking at Sherry like we don't do these events,
Yeah.
And I thought on my, I was December. I was bored looking for something to do, obviously. But I go, like, where are you at? And she goes, Des Moines, Iowa. And I go, do you think you could round up like 100 people in Des Moines, Iowa, like in February or March?
No
And she
way.
goes,
You
"Oh
said
my
this.
God, you would bring a Generosity Generation event to Des Moines, Iowa?" And I go, "Yeah, if you think you could get 100 people in a room." She goes, 100? Like, we're going to get, we're going to get so many people. It's going to be awesome. And I go, "All right, let's do it." Well, like the end of February, we're driving through the snow to Des Moines, Iowa to have our very first Gen Gen. And then 3 weeks after that, we did Gen Gen Birmingham. And then with Jenny Williams, I've got to give her credit. And
So
then
did you just go to where people were
that's
contacting
it.
you, where you could
We
drive
were
attendance?
totally reactive. We would,
Yeah.
and it was all Gen Gen, right? So we did Gen Gen Iowa, then we did Gen Gen Birmingham, then we
Awesome.
did Gen Gen Atlanta and had nearly 500 in the room. Our third event, 500 in the room.
Yeah.
Hearing about the new book. Most of them didn't have the book, so they all bought the book. And some of them bought 2, and some of them bought 28.
Yeah.
And that was honestly the beginning of the book tour. And otherwise, I mean, and honestly,
that's so smart because you're responsive and you're thinking to yourself, what could become? Just saying yes. When most people turn their brain off and be like, "No, we don't do that," you're just like in the moment being responsive to, "Hey, this is an opportunity. Let's see where it takes us." And now look at it.
I am opportunistic. I will say that. Like I'm an opportunistic in the way of how can I make this the biggest win for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And if I have to sacrifice a little bit, then it's okay. Right. Because they'll probably have to sacrifice a little bit too. But it's one of those where we did the events, and of course, what was the question from everybody at the events who had read the book? Right. They're like, the coach in the book. Like, I want that coach. Are you the coach?
Yeah.
And so guess what we did? Right.
We started
coaching. Right. And so, that's that. Now we have this freaking huge referral mastery academy, that's an online university with dozens of classes and, teaching it all underneath that referral mastery system of the 3 pillars of self-mastery, relationship mastery, and event mastery. It's been an amazing 10 years. And
I think
I'm proud of my team and my staff. It's not Michael Maher. This is just an incredible company of people, and honestly, I ride the wave. That's what I do.
Well, I mean, I think there's a lesson in that where you could literally write out the steps, but just, are you ready when opportunity knocks? Are you putting yourself in a position for opportunities? And when opportunity does knock, are you ready for the answer? Are you ready to say yes? Michael,
you're a great example of that, by the way. I mean, Gen Indy, we've done 3. Our best 2 were with you.
That's
right.
That's a high compliment. That's high praise.
No, that's the truth. I mean, it's the truth. And it's not even close, right?
I love it.
And and that's the thing. You're like, I want to provide value, for my target market. How do I do it? And let's get the guy that, has a 5-minute speech on giving away Cutco knives at housewarming parties. Right. And let's get the guy that champions us, the magazine. And
that's still on YouTube, by the way. You can find that. You can find my 5-minute speech.
I got to get rid of it. I'm about 50 pounds heavier in that damn video. And I wasn't benching 350 then. And it was that was another human ago. That was another Michael Maher ago. Yeah.
Always growing though, man. I mean, and in this moment, you're nursing a Achilles wound that you and Aaron Rodgers got injured in the same month, it feels like, but you're going to beat him in your recovery.
No, I'm 20 years older than he is. So I hope he beats me. I'm taking the full year. I'm telling you right now, I'm not trying to get back for the NFL playoffs, and neither should he, because the Jets aren't going seriously. I know this is early in the season, and some of the Jet fans might hate me for that, but listen,
we just lost all our New York listeners.
Yeah, both of them. So I think it's all good. I think it's one of those where it's I did tear my Achilles, and I think a part of the reason I did that was just because I'm in so much better shape. Because I would have, back when I wasn't in shape, I would have gone first to second and been happy at second. I'm leaner, I'm faster. Like I'm like I can tie my son in a 40-yard dash, and he's super fast. Yeah. And it's one of those where so I thought first to third, right? And going first to third, I turned it on and hit the sand just wrong, and boom, blew out a tire, right? Yeah. And the tires are worn. They're 50 years old plus, buddy. So,
well, I said it in the pre-show, and I mean it. You got to be mentally tough to come back from stuff like that. I've been injured before, and in regardless of if you're professional or if you're in sports in school, just getting injured period messes with you. So you are definitely someone that I know people will look to and how you handle your recovery because you're a mental thought leader, and we wish you the best.
well, I appreciate that. I hope they weren't around the first 5 days. They would have been very disappointed in my reaction. I was very depressed and very down and very
I feel
angry.
for Sherry. I
Yeah,
feel for
yeah,
Sherry. I do. I'm
yeah.
gonna
She wasn't
text her.
around. Hopefully, I mean, like she was smart. She left me alone to deal with it. So, yeah, she's smart. She knows how. I mean, 31 years together.
Yeah.
She's got it. She's got it down. But, it is one of those where, it's, I don't know how to explain it, but it's there is a way to. I mean, I believe in love, generosity, and appreciation. Right? I'm sold. I'm living my life with love, and there's love, which is the power, and then you've got. So what do you implement on a daily basis? It's love in action. It's generosity.
Yep.
Generosity, by definition, is really love in action, right? And then we have things that happen around us. They happen to us, but I really believe they happen for us, and those we need to appreciate. I appreciate this injury. I did not appreciate the injury the first 5 days, but now I appreciate it because, first of all, like, I could not do this without Sherry. So a huge reconnection there. We were already connected, but even more connected. Reliant now. I wasn't reliant before. I wasn't needy. Now I'm needy. But, and I'm appreciative that it's going to teach me to take it easy and slow down. Like, I'm going to go base to base. I'm going to get a runner when I need a runner. And I learned, I'm appreciative of it because it's helped me connect with a lot of people that maybe I wouldn't have connected with before. So I'm appreciative. It's like, I remember losing out on the job of my dreams when I was a high school football coach, and I was devastated. It was the best thing that ever happened to me because it propelled me into real estate.
Yeah.
I
wonder
mean,
how many realtors have that same similar story to where they had a dream and the dream died, so they found themselves in real estate. Very, very few people, when they're growing up, they want to be princesses and astronauts. Very few say realtor, except for the parents, the kids that have parents that are doing it the right way. They're like, I want to be like dad,
Totally. Evolos, right? They're, the Crockett's in Cleveland, Ohio. I mean, honestly, they had kids that dressed up as a realtor for Halloween because they wanted to be, a realtor. And it's like, and honestly, that's what I hope, people around me feel. I mean, people are always like, realtors have this certain stigma and status or whatever it is, but not in Kansas City. In Kansas City, I was looked up to as a great business leader.
Yeah.
And, there were people who wanted to be like me, like what we did, what we do, because we did it relationally. We didn't do it with smarmy salesperson tactics. We had a lot of fun doing it and loved on people.
7 levels of communication, 7L speaker, Michael Maher. We're out of time today. Where can we find you on after you listen to this podcast, listen to Michael's podcast? What is it called?
Referrals. I mean, it's the Michael J. Maher Show, Remington. No, it's not. I would never name any of my stuff after my stuff, right? It's like yours. Yours is the Real Producer podcast. That's brilliant. I mean, Real Producer podcast. That makes all. It's Referrals Podcast. We're about referrals, and referralspodcast.com. And I invite anybody who's watching this or hears this to go to joingengen.com, joingengen.com. Join the Generosity Generation. See what we're all about. Come to our Facebook group, which joingengen.com will send you there, and answer the 3 questions we ask. Get inside and join our referral network. And we need people to refer to. We would love to get to know you better and learn who you are and how we can help you and how you can help more members of our group. So we'd love to have anybody.
And in closing, what I learned is if you have his book and you can find his number easily, just call him and he will come out and speak to 100 people. That's what I learned. Opportunistic.
That
Michael
is
J. Maher.
a Michael of a few years ago, but but don't hesitate giving us a call
Hey,
and
maybe
talk
try.
about opportunities. Yeah,
I
I'll show
love
you how to get more than 100 people in the room. How about that?
There we go. All right. This has been the Real Producers Podcast. We'll see you next time.